Welcome back to Kleppers Corner, folks, where we do the kind of deep dive your high school history teacher swore you'd thank them for someday. Except here, there are more jokes and fewer pop quizzes. Today, we're slicing through time like it's a Costco birthday cake, September 30th. Think of it as the sampler platter of history. Coups, culture, cartoons, and catastrophes all jammed onto one date. It's proof that human beings never take a day off from being messy, ambitious, brilliant, or stupid. Sometimes all four at once. So buckle in. We're about to time travel without the flux capacitor. Segment 1. Henry IV steals the throne, 1399. On September 30th, 1399, Henry Bolingbroke's move, booting his cousin Richard II off the throne and crowning himself Henry IV. That's right, medieval England was basically one long episode of Succession, only with more plague and fewer helicopters. Here's the thing, Henry wasn't next in line. He wasn't even the backup quarterback. He was the guy standing in the parking lot saying, well, technically my uncle's barbershop cat is related to Henry III, so give me the crown. Parliament shrugged and said, fine, whatever, just don't kill us. That's how shaky medieval legitimacy was. You didn't need divine right, just a decent lawyer and a sword. And this set a precedent. Unpopular kings can be swapped out like expired milk, which, spoiler alert, leads straight to the Wars of the Roses. Translation, today's royal family squabbles over Harry and Meghan are tame. Nobody's trying to depose King Charles with a parliamentary motion and a horse army. Yet. Segment 2, the Munich Agreement, 1938. September 30th, 1938. Chamberlain flies home from Munich waving that famous piece of paper promising peace in our time. Yeah, it aged about as well as milk left out during Coachella. 6 months later, Hitler ate the rest of Czechoslovakia like it was a Costco free sample. Appeasement was basically the diplomatic equivalent of telling a toddler, okay, one more cookie, but you've got to behave. Then waking up to find the kid has burned down the kitchen and annexed Poland. Britain and France were desperate to avoid another world war, but instead of peace, they just bought Hitler a 6-month head start. That's not appeasement, that's a Groupon for disaster. And let's be honest, every time a politician today says, trust me, this deal will fix everything, history is screaming from the corner, that's exactly what Chamberlain said. Segment 3, the Berlin airlift ends, 1949. Fast forward to 1949. The Berlin airlift officially ends on September 30th after 277,000 flights of food, coal, and my personal favorite, chocolate bars parachuted into the city. Imagine being a kid in Berlin. Yesterday, American planes were dropping bombs. Today, they're dropping Hershey's. Talk about a brand turnaround. The Soviets wanted to starve West Berlin into submission. Instead, they just gave the Allies a chance to show off logistical flex. A plane landing every 90 seconds? That's like today's Spirit Airlines, except with fewer fistfights and way more snacks. It wasn't just supplies, it was symbolism. The West went from conquerors to guardians, while the Soviets looked like the villains in a fairy tale. The airlift ended, but the Cold War really began here. And yes, it's proof that sometimes the way to win hearts and minds really is through their stomachs, preferably with chocolate attached to a mini parachute. Segment 4, Botswana's independence, 1966. On September 30th, 1966, Botswana waved goodbye to Britain and said, thanks for the protection, but we'll take it from here. Unlike so many messy decolonization stories, this one's a success. Seretse Khama, the first president, actually built a functioning democracy, managed diamond wealth without blowing it all on gold-plated toilets, and turned Botswana into one of Africa's most stable nations. Compare that to, well, almost anywhere else. You know your Independence Day went well when 50 years later, you're not in the news for a coup or a famine. Botswana's story is like the rare Yelp review for colonialism. 1 star, would not recommend, but the exit process was surprisingly smooth. Segment 5, Hoover Dam dedication, 1935. Big dams, big dreams. On this day in 1935, Roosevelt dedicated the Hoover Dam, a New Deal project so massive it made private companies look like kids with a garden hose. Without Hoover, no Las Vegas. And without Las Vegas, no Elvis impersonator weddings, no Cirque du Soleil, no Celine Dion residencies. So yes, thank you, Hoover Dam, for the cultural gift of drunk people marrying in drive-thrus. It was also proof that the federal government could pull off mega projects. Today, we can't even fix potholes without a 6-year committee hearing. Back then, they moved entire rivers. Maybe we should bring back the 1930s mindset. Less partisan bickering, more giant concrete monuments to human hubris. Segment 6, USS Nautilus commissioned, 1954. September 30th, 1954. The USS Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered submarine, was commissioned. For the first time, a sub could stay underwater basically forever, which sounds cool until you realize it's a metal tube filled with sailors and nuclear fuel. Imagine living in a floating tin can knowing your roommate's tuna sandwich isn't the only thing that might melt down. It changed warfare. Suddenly there was no safe corner of the ocean. And when it crossed under the North Pole in 1958, America basically said, "We can nuke you from under the ice cream aisle, buddy." Mutually assured destruction may be terrifying, but it's also one hell of a conversation stopper. Segment 7, Ole Miss riots, 1962. September 30th, 1962, the Battle of Ole Miss. James Meredith, a black Air Force veteran, tried to enroll at the University of Mississippi. Segregationists responded with riots, bricks, Molotov cocktails. You know, all the things definitely not in the admissions brochure. It got so bad that JFK had to send in 30,000 troops. 30,000 to register one student. Imagine needing an entire army just to sit through an intro to algebra class. But Meredith did it. He enrolled, graduated, and showed the whole country that the federal government would break segregation with overwhelming force if necessary. Today, politicians whine about federal overreach. Back then, federal overreach meant keeping mobs with shotguns from blocking a man's education. Perspective, people. Segment 8, Atrocity and Witness, 1941 and 1928. September 30th is a dark day, too. In 1941, the Babi Yar massacre ended. 33,771 Jews executed in Kyiv. Atrocities so massive they're hard to comprehend. But history has this strange poetry. On the same date, in 1928, Elie Wiesel was born, the man who survived Auschwitz and later became the conscience of remembrance. It's a reminder, evil and resistance, atrocity and testimony can share a calendar. Wiesel turned trauma into a moral demand. Never forget. Which makes September 30th one of those rare days where humanity's worst and humanity's best are permanently intertwined. Segment 9, Culture, Cartoons, and Baseballs. September 30th has also been a party for pop culture. Mozart premiered the Magic Flute in 1791. Louisa May Alcott's Little Women dropped in 1868. Babe Ruth hit his 60th homer in 1927. The Flintstones debuted in 1960. It's like culture was on a sugar rush every time September rolled around. Think about that arc. High art opera full of Enlightenment ideals to a cartoon about a caveman bowling league. Somewhere in between, Alcott is reminding us about morality. Babe Ruth is redefining baseball, and TV is turning sports into national religion. It's the full cultural buffet. Philosophy, morality, sports, and yabba dabba doo. Humanity contains multitudes. In conclusion, so that's September 30th, a day that gave us usurpers and cartoons, massacres and miracles, nuclear subs and giant dams. A day where chocolate bars saved a city and one determined student cracked Jim Crow. It's proof that history is never one thing. It's a messy, tragic, hilarious, and profound collage. If you're ever tempted to think of today as just another day, remember September 30th. Humanity never really does just another day.